If they want to amend Section 202 of the Clean Air Act,
sir, with all due respect,
and say, hey, EPA,
a power that you have is to rewrite a regulation. You are taking an action. You could just leave it alone.
The power comes from the law. I don't get to just make up the law. And just because a predecessor decided to fill in vague language in the law to do many mental leaps to try to justify an electric vehicle mandate and trillions of dollars of regulation to strangulate out of existence entire sectors of our energy economy.
That's CNN's Kasie Hunt getting absolutely steamrolled by EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin for pretending climate panic gives unelected bureaucrats the right to make law. She tried the usual establishment media trap, and he torched the whole narrative in under 30 seconds. Welcome to Nerk News, I'm Nerkish, and it looks like CNN thought they could corner Trump's EPA pick with climate buzzwords and bureaucratic spin. Because the second he walked on set, Kasie Hunt started lobbing the usual activist nonsense, hoping he'd stumble. You know, the kind of fear-mongering they never aim at China or India for some reason. I mean, the whole thing felt like a desperate attempt to defend failed policies with zero result. Here's Hunt trying to trap Zeldin with one of the left's favorite tactics to discredit someone.
I mean, do you accept the overwhelming scientific consensus that these greenhouse gas emissions are the biggest drivers of man-made climate change?
First, it's worth pointing out that all 8 or so images that you just posted on the screen have nothing to do with this week's announcement. What was the 2009 endangerment finding had to do with was with regards to mobile sources vehicles. This week's proposal to rescind the 2009 endangerment finding was with regards to mobile sources vehicles. CNN's been using a lot of photos where they show smokestacks of stationary sources like power plants. That's not what we proposed. Now, going back to 2009, the science that they were reviewing included both optimistic to pessimistic scenarios. To reach the 2009 endangerment finding, they relied on the most pessimistic views of the science. The great news is that a lot of the pessimistic views of the science in 2009 that was being assumed ended up not panning out. Hey, that's great. We can rely on 2025 facts as opposed to 2009 bad assumptions. We at the Trump administration promote consumer choice. We don't believe that states and the federal government should be advancing any form of an electric vehicle mandate. This proposal, on top of a proposal to rescind the 2009 endangerment finding, is a proposal to rescind the greenhouse gas emissions on vehicles that followed light, medium, and heavy duty, and the off-cycle credits like the incentives for the hated start-stop feature and other aspects that we've heard from Americans from across this country. So there's a lot that goes into it. We're going through a public comment period. We want to make the right decision afterwards. But for people who want to sum up the 2009 endangerment finding as if they studied carbon dioxide as an endangerment on human health,
I want to bring us back here.
You know, this is what happens when the media forgets they're not the smartest person in the room. Hunt came in hot with the usual leftist trick of trying to frame Zeldin as a climate change denier so they can dismiss everything else he says. But the guy actually understands the law, because unlike the pundits, he's read the Constitution. I mean, he referenced the Supreme Court's Loper Bright decision, which overturned Chevron and finally told unelected bureaucrats to sit down and follow the law. And Hunt had absolutely nothing to counter with. These people don't want to talk about real emissions or any other nonsense metric they're using to seize control. If they did, they'd mention how China and India are erasing every cut the US makes. China and India pump out over 40% of global emissions, but you'll never hear the left complain because that's where they outsource all their cheap labor and buy their disposable garbage from. Instead, they spin it all as a crisis so they can punish our industries and grow their control. Here's Hunt trying again to paint Zeldin as heartless and getting owned all over again.
Do you think the federal government should have a role in trying to combat climate change?
It's a great question, and I'm at the EPA and running an agency. The Supreme Court made it very clear that I have to follow the law. I have to follow the plain language of the law, and I can't get creative. So when you read through the 2009 endangerment finding, they say that where there's silence in the law, there's gaps, that I should just be interpreting that as my own discretion. The Supreme Court has made it very clear that that is not what is a power that I have. This decision is a decision for Congress to make. You were posting earlier a whole bunch of photos of stationary sources. Well, the Biden administration did do a whole bunch of regulations to try to make, for example, the coal industry get regulated out of existence. There are people out there who like wind. I come from a state where the governor says that New York is a substitute for baseload power. It's not. In order to make America the AI capital of the world, in order to unleash energy dominance, to protect the jobs, to bring down energy costs, we are not going to regulate out of existence entire sectors of our economy, and we are not going to interpret law in whichever vague, creative way allows us to give ourselves maximum power. The power comes from the law and from Congress, not from our own creativity.
I mean, it's clear that this isn't about science. Hunt couldn't even name anything specific. She just kept saying the same vague line about a scientific consensus. Because this is all about using climate panic as cover to consolidate power. You know, under Biden, the EPA tried to classify puddles as protected waters and pushed EV mandates that ignored basic economics, all propped up by Chevron deference. Funny how the same people who screamed about Elon having too much influence as an unelected private citizen suddenly have no problem handing sweeping power to unelected EPA officials writing regulations like they're lawmakers. Because it's not about the planet, it's about power. Zeldin called it exactly what it is. A scam that sacrifices our prosperity so elites can feel virtuous while outsourcing the blame. But let me know what you think. Are climate mandates just another way for the left to punish American success while letting China and India off the hook? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. That stuff really does help us out. Until then, this has been Nerk News. Thanks for watching. Bye.